Hold on a sec. Here we go. Anyways, so of the new cards that have come out since I was gone, we first off got this one, Beckoning Lumen, which, aside from some pretty terrible art, has some good things going for it. It's a 6/4 for 5. It has Life Force. At the end of your turn, if you gained health, draw a card. There's some interesting things about the card in general. It is a decent enough rare. It definitely gets to draw you extra cards most of the time. I should note that since this is an end of turn effect, this card is basically going to create some issues because you can play it down and you can gain some life and then your opponent can annihilate it and then it will go away and you won't draw anything. And that's not an amazing exchange in time. I think the card's stat line is actually pretty good. 5 power, 6/4 has proven to be pretty resilient. Veteran Mercenary did that pretty well. It is monocolored, which means it's easier to kill, but the amount of cards that it draws you is pretty relevant. This card has really fun synergies with Stronghold's Visage, with Sanctuary Priest, with Water of Life, all of those cool things. Yeah, it's an interesting card design. I don't care for the art much. It's a little bit too much, and also it's kind of bad, just not really well drawn. But all the same, weird little Life Eldisk, whatever. All right. I am fairly excited about the card. I think that it's a decent amount of extra stuff going on. You can definitely have some fun with this in draft. You can have some fun with this in a couple of different setups. I don't like it too much for ranked, but I think it'll be okay there. There's just so many other cool things you can be doing in ranked. It's all right. It's decent. In any case, so we will go ahead and switch that out for the next one. Browse on through. Okay, so after the warp cards were spoiled, I believe the next thing that got spoiled were the new revenge cards. Those ones are going to take up a lot more space. Whee! Yep, alright. So let's just see if we can shrink that down to a reasonable amount. There we go. Alright. Toctic, Stone Powder Alchemist, and Victor's Cry. Okay, so Toctic is great. It's a really fun one. So Toctic is a Clockroach with Revenge. It has a great name, of course. The joke I did not actually get immediately, but was pretty quick to understand it. It is, of course, you know, not just the reversed TikTok. It is a tick. So there you go. Yeah, but it has Revenge. It is a 1/1 for 1. This card is pretty fantastic just for the draft environment. I think it actually has some decent strength in, of course, obviously Clockroach decks, Xenon Clockroaches, and Crown of Possibilities Clockroaches, because Crown of Possibilities Clockroaches can go into Shadow, as we actually tend to build it nowadays. But I really like this card in draft because, if you aren't familiar with Revenge, we have covered it several times, but the basic idea here is that when a unit with Revenge dies, it goes into the top 10 cards of your deck, and it gets Destiny instead of Revenge. So it removes Revenge, gets Destiny, and then every time after you draw it, you will play it for free, get a new card, and every time that you draw it out of your void, anything like that, it'll still have Destiny, you'll still get to do all the cool Destiny things. So giving a card Destiny is really strong, and that's why Toctic's kind of exciting. The thing that's really cool about Toctic is that it is just a 1-power Revenge card, and a 1-power Revenge card means that you can interact with it in a lot of really cool ways. The best ones being Combust, Devour, and Ravenous Thornbeast, all of which are draft commons. If you are playing Toctic, you basically have a delayed Dark Wisp effect on it, and then later on you get to do cool things where you can like draw cards off of your Dark Returns, draw cards off of your other stuff like that. It's pretty good stuff. So yeah, like it's overall pretty solid. Stone Powder Alchemist is pretty nice as well. Like, we get to do some cool things with it. It's got Lifesteal and Revenge, and summon, deal 2 damage to the enemy player. That means that almost at a bare minimum, this card can do 8 damage and steal 8 life. Pretty notable. It does not trade very well on board, but it is a card that comes out, hits your opponent, and hitting your opponent is pretty important. Like, general aggression is always nice. Heals you, which is also important, and then chump blocks. And if you can chump block well with it, then you get 2 extra health, or you can even get a trade, and then after that it'll come out again, it'll hit your opponent again, and you'll have another potential chump block. In addition, it's a 4-power unit with lifesteal. It's got stats that are not amazing, but can still fit a good weapon, so this this card can fit in Argenport decks that are running weapons and lifesteal units. It will get buffs from Oathbreaker in particular, and it is on curve with Oathbreaker, which means that you can play Stonepetal Alchemist, play Oathbreaker, and then like you just have that sort of continuous threat curve. Basically, we're starting to see Argenport flesh out a little bit as a really interesting aggro archetype, and also as like sort of again, that kind of balance that Justice really tends to do well, where you are both doing damage and gaining health, and then like you sort of just weigh out in the way out better as a result. And that also works well when you're splashing in for Xenon for Life Force. Like Stonepetal Alchemist triggers Life Force a lot, and that's really important as far as the design is concerned. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So Victor's Cry gives Revenge. One of your units has +5/+5 this turn. This is our first spell with Revenge, and that's pretty awesome. The art's pretty cool too. Expand that for just a moment. Yeah, we've seen that before. It was spoiled a little while ago, but really cool to see. Interesting things about it. Obviously, this card does have Destiny, which means that it will be played out the turn that you draw it once it has been put back on top of your deck. Or it will be given Destiny, and then once you draw it, you play it. You don't have any control over whether or not you play it. So it's a fast spell the first time around. The second time around, it is effectively a slow spell. Although you can, in some ways, control that draw. So if you're attacking in, you can be like, I'm going to attack you, and then your opponent like blocks. You have this really interesting top deck situation where you can do a thing like Wisdom of the Elders, and then Victor's Cry will trigger, you'll get the Victor's Cry, and that maybe will be awesome. Or you might not hit the Victor's Cry, and you'll run into something and die. So, you know, that's a little game that you're going to have to play, and that's pretty exciting. So yeah, Victor's Cry is pretty great. I am fairly excited about it overall. I think that it is not amazing in the ranked environment. It might be okay as sort of a fast spell charge maneuver. Like, it'll be good if Tyrannize is ever good. Basically, these things do very similar things where they have a lot of extra attack damage and a lot of extra like push. But yeah, I probably would. It compares favorably to Tyrannize at the very least. It's not amazing, but I think it is probably going to give you a lot of extra damage at times when you really need it, and it works very well with Argenport and the whole lifesteal archetype in particular, because having a big unit that your opponent can't really block that also deals a lot of damage, like that's just really, really good if you can give it to a lifesteal unit. So Victor's Cry overall looks to be a really decent combat trick, and something that people will have to watch out for in Argenport decks in particular. Mono Green might use it. I could see it in Rakano. I don't think we'll see it much in Combre, because Combre is just a little bit too big already. They don't really have a use for Victor's Cry, but maybe. In any case, it is a decent spell that gives you a lot of extra just oomph, so pretty cool stuff. And all three of these Revenge cards really sort of demonstrate that Argenport is going to be a faction to be reckoned with. Should be pretty solid in draft, should be very interesting in ranked. I think we're going to see some cool decks built around it, and yeah, very excellent. Okay, so I turn on chat for the video, and everyone gets extremely silly, I see. Okay, so that's the commons spoiled. I could talk a little bit about the Praxis Spark cards real quick, just because I kind of forgot to last time, or like I think we managed to like mess up that video somehow. But yeah, they're pretty awesome. Skyward Seer, Spark, draw a flying unit of your choice from your deck. This card will get you all sorts of cool utility cards, including like Rhymescale Draconis, basically anything cool with flying that comes out in the next set. Thunderstrike Dragon for value. There's so many different toolkit cards you can get with Skyward Seer. That card is going to be really amazing as far as like control decks go with slow flyers. Cloudsnake Breeder, the Spark is very difficult here. And we can explain Spark, of course. Spark is when you deal damage, you get the thing. So if you deal damage during your turn, you get Spark when you play the card. Cloudsnake Breeder gives you a ton of stats for a very short amount of value, and that's awesome. Like, really, really good stuff. Like, I think that as a 2-1 for 2 that sometimes gets you a little flyer, that's okay. It's pretty decent in draft. It's hard to get that spark. It's much harder to get that spark than any other spark card at the moment, but there may be some good activators for it, and if there are, that's going to be pretty sweet. Cloud Snake Breeder also works very well with other Cloud Snakes and with Humbugs, so you could build like a Cloud Snake Humbug like Xenon deck. I imagine that'll be a decent gold deck. Could be fun. Groundbreaker, spark double damage, the enemy player can't gain health, is a 3/6, so it becomes a 6/6, can spar with Titans, can deal a ridiculous amount of damage, plays extremely well with Rampage. This is a insane Monofire 4-drop, and Monofire does not have good 4-drops right now. So, like, it is just one of the better cards that has been spoiled overall in terms of just sheer power level. Card is absolutely nuts. The enemy player can't get health is an effect that you really, really want on fire cards. It's also an important hoser for the Xenon archetype. So we have seen now that, like, as Life Force is going to become a thing, we're going to have answers to the Life Force archetype, and that's going to be pretty relevant. I think Groundbreaker will definitely make Mono Fire a legitimate archetype in set 2. We're already seeing some people trying it in set 1 and seeing some success out of it. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. All right. So yeah, that was the quick and dirty because we want to get into the fun stuff. The legendaries are occurring. So the event this weekend is Legendaries. It is very similar to the last spoiler event where you pick a deck with your opposing colors, so a Hooru deck or a Praxis deck or a Skycrag deck, and then whatever those colors that you picked are, you're going to get 4 legendaries for that set shuffled into your deck, making a 75-card deck. And the legendaries that we got are amazing. There's some really interesting ones in here. I think some of them are less interesting than others. Let's start with the sort of least impressive, but also, yeah, I would say it's the least impressive, but also potentially very strong card, Moment of Creation. All right, so the Praxis 8-cost card is notable in that it has a lot of synergy with other Praxis cards that we've already established. It plays 2 Sentinels with power and toughness equal to the number of spells in your void. Some spells that you're often going to have in a Praxis deck include things like Assembly Line. You will be playing things like Torch, of course. You might be playing Excavates or Ancient Lores or all sorts of different things. I think there are plenty of spells that you can actually put into your deck to make Moment of Creation at least give you like 4/4 to 5/5 Sentinels if you're not even trying. And that could be pretty okay, especially since when you're creating 2 big mid-range units in a tokens deck, that tends to be very effective. Those units are also going to be buffed by things like Xenon Obelisk. They're going to trigger Volt of the Praxis, which is very important. And yeah, overall you will get a lot of bang for your buck. And it's nice because it is a spell unit that generates units. I want to see more of those in general because they're just pretty powerful. I think that overall I'm not too excited by just generating 2 big dudes. I think that it can be good, but it is just it's not a card specifically for me. Nonetheless, the card is definitely capable of creating some interesting interesting stuff. It will set up pretty well against like some of the big Combre stuff, so if you're getting like just completely swarmed out in the late game, you're going to have an interesting time with it. The thing that's cool about it, I think, is that it really interacts well with Champion of Impulse. There are not that many cards for Champion of Impulse to really want to ramp to right now, and a lot of them are cards that he really wants to, like, you want to play before you play Champion of Impulse's Warp. But this is one of those things where all of that ramp that you're running is actually going to make Moment of Creation a lot better. So if you're going to play this in the event, easy way to do it is 4 secret pages for Find the Ways, and there you go. You've just suddenly piled probably enough to make 2 8/8s into your deck and get it out pretty quick. Seek Power, of course, is a card that's going to power up Sentinels. Rally is going to be important. So if you just want to run like straight Praxis tokens with a bunch of ramp, that'll work. Moment of Creation should be pretty fun with that. Will be interesting. I think this card will do okay in the event. It's definitely just a card that gives you power. It's not impressive in any sort of like spectacle sense, but it is a card that just gives you stats, and the stats that it gives you are actually pretty good for its cost. So yeah, I wouldn't count it out. Doubling up cards is really interesting, and we'll see how it goes. All of these cards actually have some lore flavor, which I really like. Moment of Creation is a card that is focused on Talir rediscovering the lost art of building sentinels in an attempt to figure out what's going on in the Shadowlands. So that's pretty cool. We'll save Aid of the Hooru for last, because that one's really fun. Oh, actually, no. Aid of the Hooru should come up soon, because Mora Nakova is also really good. Alright, so we'll do Aid of the Hooru. Okay. Aid of the Hooru. Dimensional Rift is back, and it's ready for action. This card is, in some senses, better than Dimensional Rift, and in some senses worse. If you didn't know what Dimensional Rift was, it was a 10-cost Feln card very early on in like open beta that stunned 2 units, killed 2 units, drew 2 units from your void, and drew you 2 cards. So very good on card advantage, sometimes okay at stabilizing you, sometimes didn't actually stabilize you, which was really interesting, and like could really get you into a lot of trouble. Aid of the Hooru, on the other hand, stabilizes you on all fronts. It not only locks down your opponent's board completely, excepting Sandstorm Titans, of course, it also plays some Owls to deal with the Sandstorm Titans. It draws you extra cards that you're not going to run into top deck mode, and it gives you armor so that you aren't going to die to burn. Basically, if you play Aid of the Hooru, you're probably winning. And like that's just generally going to be the thing. So Aid of the Hooru doesn't win you the game, but if you can in any way play it, you're going to be in a position to win the game pretty quick. Or like you're going to be, yeah, it should be in a situation where you are just in very, very good shape. It's especially good if you can take advantage of all of the different things that are going on here, like cards like Icebreaker that take advantage of the stunning. Not so great, but reasonable. If you have things like Obelisk or anything that deals with like owls in some way, where you actually get some value out of those owls, that's really good. Obviously the card draw is always going to be good, but if you can also deal with the armor in some way, if you have relic weapons, then Aid of the Hooru can be a little bit better than it already is. And even then, I think the card is just very strong as long as you can play it. It is, however, our first 12-cost card. It is not terribly playable, and that is something that you really have to pay attention to. So there are a lot of ways to cheat out this card. The main one right now is you want to play Herald Song and Westman Herald. That will get you Aid of the Hooru pretty quickly, and it's a very solid card for just discarding to Westman Herald and throwing it out and just constantly recurring it, having a really fun time with that. Martial Ironthorn is really good for this. I think Big Combre in general is going to have a lot of fun with Aid of the Hooru. We ran a deck called Ironthorn Impossible that basically specifically wanted to play Dimensional Rift all the time, and that same deck really will thrive just being 3 colors. So Aid of the Hooru is pretty excellent in that situation, and I'm pretty excited about it. So it plays well with the Ironthorn New Tomorrow, big ramp archetype. That's really going to be a fun place for it. The last place that I really like it is it's really fun with Jaral Frostheart, and we're building a deck around that. We'll show it off a little bit later, but it is, yeah, it is... basically, if you have Jaral Frostheart, you don't care about casting Aid of the Hooru, you just care about dealing 12 damage to everything. Hard to do, but extremely satisfying if you can do it. So, fun little interesting card to play. Aid of the Hooru is pretty impressive stuff. The lore bit here is that Eileen has, after the campaign, returned to Argenport, and with Roland having done very bad things to Argenport, she is escorting refugees with the aid of the Hooru. So, good stuff. Pretty fun. Yeah, card is pretty solid. Let's get a quick close-up of the art. Giant owls. Alright. Okay, next up, let's do the Argenport, if I can find it. Mask of Torment is closer. We'll do the Mask of Torment. Alright. Mask of Torment. The Tormentor's Mask. Isn't it lovely? Just fits right on there. Yeah. I especially like that in addition to all the spikes, it has just a thing that clearly just goes inside your head. That's good. Okay. Yeah, so this weird mask is really actually a very solid card. So the Tormentor, if you didn't know, is an 8/8 flying charge overwhelm that when it dies, if it's in your void, it generates 1/1 Spitelings. That's not worth 25 power, but that's not why you're playing this card. Mask of Torment is instead a card that just gives you an insane amount of extra power, just because of the way that it gains you power by playing it, the way that it gains you power by gaining life, and the way that it plays with Azindel, who also wants to gain you a bunch of power. So, like, between Mask of Torment and Azindel, you can generally, like, I would say it is not out of the question to have around 50 power in a game. Like, Mask of Torment Azindel can get you power on the level of New Tomorrow Martial Ironthorn combos. It's just disgusting. The thing that makes Mask of Torment better than Azindel is that Mask of Torment is a card that does not go away very easily, and that means that not only is it basically guaranteed to ramp you, it's guaranteed to ramp you a lot. At the moment, Xenon does not have a lot of things that it wants to do with this. It really can only play like Witching Hour. It can play big copper conduits with Predator's Instinct. That is usually a good way to end the game. So yeah, there's a pretty decent amount of stuff. You do not get the power from Life Force if the card is destroyed. So the power goes away. So paying the 25 for the Tormentor might be the thing that Mask of Torment wants to do. And that's okay. The Tormentor is definitely a card that gives you a very good chance at ending the game quickly, and if it doesn't end the game quickly, still has a chance of ending the game slowly. Mask of Torment will provide value in the late game if it stays alive, and it's pretty likely to stay alive. So it's a really fun Life Force card. It's a good Life Force interaction. A lot of the Life Force cards are going to be expensive, and so yeah, there's some potential for this card. I think it's really interesting. Overall, pretty solid stuff. I was going to expand the art, but I just remembered that I did that already. So, yeah, no, the card has a lot of exciting possibilities. I really look forward to seeing if we find more Xenon cards in general, but should be interesting. So, okay, next up. A Galvina, did someone say? Grenvlad. Grenvlad, Judge of Battles. 7/9 for 7. In hybrid colors. Show the art off real quick. Or do that. That works too. Okay, here we go. Come on. Art. Okay. Minotaur giving the thumbs down. We have a Colosseum theme in Argenport. So when one of your other units is killed, Grenvlad deals that unit's strength and damage to the enemy player. So first off, stat line here is pretty absurd. That card is a 7/9. I don't think there is a bigger card for 7. Towering Terrazon is an 8/8, which may be better, especially since it's invulnerable to damage, but Grenvlad does pretty good. Like, this card is our first 7-drop card, our first card in that, like, sort of archetype of 7-drop allied color pairs. So, Nightmaw, Icaria, I think there's one for every color, but I'm going to struggle to remember them all. Nightmaw, Icaria, Vodafone, Grenvlad is the first in that cycle of the opposing colors. And not bad as far as things go. So the thing about Grenvlad is that you're probably going to be playing it and attacking with everything, as Alindria is stating. It is just very, very good at getting a decent amount of extra damage in very, very early, because, that when your unit is killed includes when it dies to other effects, including Devour or Sacrifice. Like, that is not just when it dies to an opponent's effect. It is any type of death effect that'll trigger Grenvlad. That looks pretty solid, and it should be a good way to get a lot of extra damage on your opponent. I'm not amazed that Grenvlad is the unit dealing the damage. I kind of want the enemy unit to deal the damage, but I guess I'm okay with it. It would be nice if she triggered Infiltrates. It would be nice if she triggered Lifesteal, because of course she is in the Argenport set. That's, I feel like, a missed opportunity, or more likely, that was the original design, and then they were like, oh god, this is so powerful, and they changed it. Like, yeah, you see something like that, where like all of the other cards that do this kind of thing can sometimes trigger that fun. Like Caldera and Chandler, for example. Yeah, so in any case, you can give Grenvlad Lifesteal, you can give her double damage, you can give her Overwhelm, you can give her Infiltrates of her own, like she will definitely trigger a Beast Caller's Amulet. Not that that's really your primary goal at this point, but fun times nonetheless. Let's see here. If you had, like, I'll bet you might be able to find an infinite combo with her if you could, like, set up a Beast Caller's Amulet and a Cabal Mastermind and just find some sort of infinite sacrifice outlet. Currently, there isn't an infinite sacrifice outlet, but if you find one, there you go. That's the infinite combo. Grenvlad has some potential for crazy combo stuff, but mostly she's just like a really solid 7-drop that kind of tops off the Argenport curve and makes things kind of scary. We'll see if she ends up being playable. These big cards are a little bit harder to evaluate. Nightmaw didn't end up seeing a lot of play, but he did see some. Vodafone definitely saw a lot of play. Ikaria definitely saw a lot of play. The other 2 cards that I don't really remember probably saw a lot of play. Was it... So we got Feln, Cambrai, Rakano. My brain is just dead right now. I can't even remember the other 2 factions at this point. Feln, Cambrai, Rakano... I can't believe Stonescar. Stonescar has the 7-drop Stonescar Leviathan, and that means that the last one is... Alright, anyways. Elysian. Elysian's 7-drop is, it's not... I don't actually know what Elysian's 7-drop is. Blue, blue, yellow, yellow, yellow. That sounds very familiar. I can check real quick. Alright, anyways, there is a 7-drop in every color, I assure you. It's Curiox. Oh, how did I miss Curiox? Curiox is the best. Alright, anyways. So yeah, Grenvlad, that means that there is going to be a cycle of awesome 7-drops with 3 colors, so worth looking into, and we're pretty excited about her. I think Grenvlad has some serious potential in Argenport. She has some fun interactions with sacrifice decks in general. You could always just play like a green... There's already a green, purple, red Callous Armory deck, and you could do something like play a Grenvlad, play a... Stonescar Callous at 10, and I believe that she will deal the damage on Entomb, so could be pretty fun. Okay, so yeah, Grenvlad's interesting. I'm excited by her, and we will see how well she does. Okay, so we've got Moment, we've got Mask, we've got Grenvlad, we have 8 of the Hooru. That leaves 1 more, perhaps the most exciting of the batch. 8 of the Hooru is real exciting, never you mind, but I played a lot of Dimensional Rift in my time, so this is new and fun stuff. Introducing Mulldrinova. Mullet and Dakova. I believe it's Russian for hammer and anvil, or at least it's sort of Russian for hammer and anvil, you know. It's just Creative Liberties dragon naming, so fun, fun, fun. Okay, 8/8 for 8, triple red, triple blue. This could actually be the 7-drop for Skycrag. Skycrag might just have one that's more expensive. But 8 cost 8/8, that's always a really fun stat. Flying and Aegis. So 8 cost 8/8 flying and Aegis. Right away, that's all you need. The Spark ability is insane. Spark is deal 4 damage to each enemy, and that means that you get to just completely wipe a lot of early boards, do a lot of fun stuff, and it's crazy fun for just like blowing up your opponent's stuff and having a delightful, delightful time. I can't think of any ways at the moment to give Mulldrinova lifesteal or double damage in your hand, but that would be really exciting if you could do it. If you can give it Overwhelm in your hand, that's also really good. Anything that deals a bunch of damage to a bunch of different units that gets Overwhelm is really fun. But the thing about Mulldrinova that's really, really nice is that control decks in general always want some sort of unit that is a big, huge flyer that's hard to kill, that immediately pressures out the game. Like, if you can play a control archetype, if you played control archetypes in Magic, you know that this type of unit is like really, really good at just making crazy fun stuff happen and doing like amazing stuff. Mulldrinova in Crown decks? Absolutely. We'll build that 100%. Like, that's so good. That's so fun. We'll just play like Curiox Dragon Control, or Nyctotraxian Dragon Control, Nyctotraxian Dragon Crown, with Mulldrinova, Curiox the Collector, and Nyctotraxian. And then whatever dragon you get, you just make it bananas. So yeah, like, inevitability is really important. This card is hard to kill. It's hybrid colored, has too much health, has an Aegis, and basically is just nuts. Like, it also has an evasive ability. So like all of that just sort of measures up to something that is very, very capable of pushing across and beating up your opponent after you have just played nothing but spells all game. So Mulldrinova gonna see play in Skycrack control. I can pretty much guarantee it. And like overall, the card is just amazing. It's good art. I really like the just like fire and lightning dragon. Fun to see. Nice to have a fire and lightning dragon in general. Good to show primals like sort of happy times with lightning. There's a lot of damage coming out of it. There's a lot of cool interactions with like fun Johnny cards, but mostly this card is just like a really solid like spike control card. Like it does everything you want it to do. The spark's not that hard to activate when you're at 8. Basically, you're always going to have something to play it out. You might have to play it at 9, but Stormcaller is going to be a good card for that. Anything with Overwhelm, anything in red. You could be playing something like Brimstone Altar? No, not Brimstone Altar. I was going to say Black Iron Manacles, but I think that's the end of the opponent's turn. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways where you can make Mulldrinova get that spark, and even if it doesn't, it's a card worth playing at 8, so... yeah, good stuff. Alright, that's all of the legendaries, so we'll be brewing some decks up for the event this weekend. That, however, is my time for the evening, so to both you Twitch and YouTube folks, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate like all the positivity that you guys have lent to the stream and the YouTube channel. It's been a delightful time doing this. I'm really enjoying myself, and I hope you guys are too. I am out, so have a good night, everyone. Thank you for watching. Cheers.